me, Emil, in diminutive mode. I'm actually recording this on the mobile look. I guess I could put it in the expanded look, where, it's full screen. But I like the mobile look because I guess most people are looking at this on their phones. Maybe you're on YouTube at Emil Amok 1, or on Twitter at Emil Amok, or on Facebook at emilguillermo.media. Anyway, welcome. Here we are. You found us, the secret podcast. And, a lot of people say, oh, we're the secret podcast. No, this is the secret podcast. I mean, people call themselves secret podcast and they've got like millions of viewers. This is a secret podcast. And I think you can count the number of listeners or viewers on a single hand, not two hands, a single hand, maybe sometimes two hands, but anyway, it's Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes and all things considerable. Thank you for dropping by. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, live to talk about the news. Lots happening in the news. Hope you had a great weekend. It was hot again in California where I was, but I think it was not as hot. I mean, the heat wave subsided a little bit, but it was still kind of hot. And this was my joke when I was in Florida. I said, you can tell by the number of clothes I'm wearing that I just came into Florida. I don't know how to dress for Florida. Well, this is the case with hot weather everywhere for me. I always wear too many clothes. I'm the guy at the nudist colony with too many clothes. That's the way it is with me. Anyway, we're going to talk about Trump. Trump did some stupid things this weekend. Oh, when is that not the case? But some notable stupid things. We'll talk about the new polls that are out. People still want to give some time to see if the convictions for the man I call CFDT 34, convicted felon Donald Trump 34, because 34, that's the number of counts, right? The number of guilty verdicts. And when you think about it, just count to 34, and it just like it sinks in. There, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, stop, no, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, no, keep going, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, keep going, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, keep going, 21, 22, 23, 24, can they stop? No, keep going, 25, 26, 27, 28, keep going, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 guilties, verdicts. When you think about it that way, I mean, it's not insignificant. And so CFDT 34, convicted felon Donald Trump, that's a big deal. People are forgetting that. You got to keep in the back of your head. CFDT 34. See my columns on the Aldef blog and other places to see my rationale, but it's important. And we'll never know what the polls. Well, the only poll that counts, of course, is November 5th. But there are polls that are coming out that show what, if any, advantage to Joe Biden that's come out of these convictions, and we'll talk about that. I want to talk about the Hunter Biden trial because, all right, now you pay attention because the jury has it, and it would be so unfair if Hunter Biden is put away on these charges, these federal gun charges that are based on whether or not did he lie when he filled out that form. Thousands of people fill out these forms, and it's like so pro forma, they don't even think. But they're going after Hunter Biden here, and that's unfair. And so there's this little thing called jury nullification that might come into play, and we'll talk about that. Jury nullification, which essentially says, maybe we shouldn't be prosecuting this guy. And I think that is the case. I want to talk a little about Harvard because 6/10, June 10th, before Harvard moved everything up to May, the end of May, June 10th, it was an important day in my life because that was graduation week, and I gave a big speech, and it's a story that, I should get over, and I have gotten over the painful parts. but it's still an historical point in my life that I haven't forgotten. I'll talk about that in a second. And what else? Oh, and then I should talk about the WSOC, the World Series of Comedy. Now, I know people are saying, Emil, World Series of Comedy. Hey, look, don't get so excited. I'm going as the bat boy. Incidentally, did you see that was a pretty good couple of games, Yankees and Dodgers? But it goes to show you that even with the Yankees and Dodgers, as good as those teams are, baseball still gets pretty boring unless your stars are producing. And Teoscar Hernandez, I mean, my God, if you've never heard of Teoscar Hernandez, he's like the second tier of star in the Dodger lineup that includes Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts. And then you got to talk about Teoscar Hernandez, and he's the guy who did all the damage offensively for the Dodgers that when they turned back and beat the Yankees. He almost did it on the final day on Sunday, but Teoscar, he came up with a home run in the late innings, but the Yankees came back and they beat the Dodgers. But that's how you make baseball entertaining. You have the most skilled players on the same team. It may seem unfair, but in some ways, it makes a game interesting because you're not dealing with a mix of good players and really lousy players. Like that's sort of the way the Chicago White Sox are. That's sort of the way the San Francisco Giants are. Every mediocre team in baseball is like 1 or 2 stars, if that, maybe 1 star. And it's unfortunate if your 1 star is a pitcher because he doesn't play every day. I mean, that's the case with the San Francisco Giants and Logan Webb. Their 1 star is a pitcher. He plays once every 5 days. But you got a lot of mediocre players and 1 star on these teams, and it's only because of greed, right? The way they should do games and baseball, professional sports leagues, is they should have the best players on the best teams and really stack them. And then you'd have only a handful of teams, playing. And we'd all watch because they were the best. But because we water it down and we want everyone to participate. So, yeah, Milwaukee and Cincinnati should participate as well as Florida. It shouldn't just be the big market teams like New York and Los Angeles. But, greed takes in and people say, I want a team. There's a reason why there's not a team in Portland. Because that would water things down a bit more in baseball. Anyway, when the Dodgers played the Yankees this weekend, I thought, yeah, that's the way they should have it. We should, and if owners want to stack teams, let's stack maybe 5 teams. Let's have the best 5 or 6 team league. And let's not expand it so that there's 20 teams and they're all mediocre. Now, the interesting part is that sometimes it doesn't work out that way where bad teams can win. But basically, the Yankees and Dodgers are too stacked. And it's the same thing with basketball, right? If you saw the NBA last night, the Mavericks have 1 star and 1 half star. Kyrie Irving plays sometimes, but he's been negated in this series against the Celtics, who have too many good players. They're stacked. So that gets kind of boring. And people are upset with the way the Golden State Warriors formed their teams when they added Kevin Durant. Well, now the Warriors are aging. They have 1 star and a bunch of stars who are falling. Draymond Green isn't what he was. Klay Thompson isn't what he was. So it makes the Warriors kind of boring. But, boy, when Kevin Durant joined Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry 7 years ago, man, that was a good team. That was a great team. And now people don't like that. I don't know why. I think, that was a great team when teams, that was almost like the pro teams were like the AAU teams and the rec teams where they were kind of loaded, and it was almost like cheating. Felt like cheating Well, I think you should have great all-star teams playing other great all-star teams. And then the percentage for failure is not as great. I mean, you have teams firing away, but it shouldn't be like the all-star game in basketball, which is just terrible. And the score is like 200 to something. Yeah. Anyway, I got off on sports because I'm talking about the World Series of Comedy. I'm in this thing, and I talk about how I do performance. I do these comic narratives, and I was listening to Jabuki Allen White. I think that's his name, and he was saying, I'm more of a TV writer, producer than I am a stand-up comic, but I'm stand-up comic informed, stand-up informed. So, and I think that's what I was looking for. I want stand-up to be part of my show, my one-man show that I do when I go to fringe festivals. But it's not just stand-up, because stand-up is joke, 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 joke. I mean, there's a rhythm and a pace to stand-up, but it's really more a comic narrative. So what I've done is I do that show when I go to fringe festivals around the country, like I went to New York and Orlando. But the stand-up part I extract, and I like to go to clubs and perform just that. 5, 10, 20 minutes. And so the World Series of Comedy is coming up. I'm in a satellite in Tacoma, Washington. If you'd like to go, it's June 19th. It's next Wednesday, a week from this coming Wednesday. If you want to go to it live, you can get a discount ticket. Email me at emil@amok.com and or emilamok@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how to get a discounted ticket, like $15, something like that. It's not 30. If you go without the discount, it's like $30. But if you want to see me compete next Wednesday, June 19th, World Series of Comedy, Seattle, or rather the Tacoma Comedy Club, 6th and Proctor in Tacoma, then by all means, email me, emil@amok.com or emilamok@gmail.com, and I will tell you how to get that discounted ticket. You can see me live. And if you just want to live stream it, email me and I'll tell you how to live stream it for essentially free. It's a donation, but it's essentially, you can pay what you want. June 19th. It should be fun. World Series of Comedy, WSOC. And I'm competing against, I think, 16 other folks in this Wednesday show. And then if I get out of Wednesday, and if I place in the top 3, then I get to perform Thursday and Friday. And I think Saturday. Thursday, Friday, or I think Thursday and Friday I get to perform. And if I get out of those, I get to perform the finals on Saturday. And that should be fun if I get that far. I don't know if I'll get that far. Maybe I will. But it's part of just being in this artificial competitive setup where it's, the survivor, to the survivor the spoils, or to the winner the spoils. And the winner is pronounced the champ of the satellite, and then competes later in September at the World Series of Comedy in Las Vegas. So I'm excited about this satellite. If you want to attend live, shoot me an email, emil@amok.com or emilamok@gmail.com. I'll tell you how to get a discounted ticket for the Wednesday show. That's the most important thing. The Wednesday show if you're in Tacoma. And then if you just aren't in Tacoma and want to just see the live stream, I'll let you know how to see the live stream essentially for free. It's a pay what you want for charity. So just send me an email, June 19th. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to another fringe festival. I'll probably do another show, maybe in San Francisco, in the San Francisco Bay Area, maybe in Fresno. I like Fresno. For some reason, I like Fresno. And maybe in your town, if you want to see my show in your town, email me and we'll figure out a way. I'm hoping to get to Austin, of all places. But I am hoping to get to Austin. Maybe if not the summer, maybe September, October. But that's how I'm planning out my next few months. And we're doing this World Series of Comedy as far as it can take us, if it takes us anywhere. All right. So I've been following how Trump is handling himself. Boy, handles himself miserably in Las Vegas. Sweltering temperatures, essentially telling people, hey, look, I don't care about you. I just want your vote. Boy, that's a shot of reality. If you're still voting for Donald Trump, I don't know. What is your motivation? Why do you think this guy is the best guy? Convicted felon, Donald Trump, 34 guilty verdicts. But the polls have come out. We've been looking to see, well, what will the polls say after the convictions? And there are 3 polls: Reuters, Ipsos, New York Times, Siena, CBS YouGov, and it shows that Joe Biden is closing the gap somewhat on Trump. Not surprisingly as well. All right, pre-conviction in the Reuters poll, Trump and Biden were tied. After the conviction, Trump is up, or rather, Biden is up 2 points. 2 points. That's it. That's not much for the Reuters Ipsos poll. You'd think a conviction for Trump and 34 guilty counts, would get him more, but it doesn't. Biden is just up 2 points within the margin of error. So essentially, toss up, right? The New York Times Siena poll, before the conviction, Trump was up 3 points. Post-conviction, only up 1 point. So Biden makes headway, but once again, not the kind of earth-shattering headway that you'd expect. But maybe this is the thing. Maybe this is the reality. We don't really, or we shouldn't really expect any kind of real impact on the polls. The CBS YouGov poll, Trump was up 4 points, and now post-conviction only up 1 point. So Biden making headway, but it's all within the margin of error. So what's really important is to show that people are comparing Biden and Trump. 51% of those polls said that's what they're doing. They're comparing Biden versus Trump. It's not a judgment about Trump. Only 26% say it's a judgment about Trump, and only 22% say it's a judgment about Biden. So it's really just comparing the two side by side and seeing how you feel. Now, they also asked what the major factors are in this 2024 vote. Only 28%, a third of the electorate, said it's about the Trump convictions. So that explains the kind of lackluster, or the very small movement of Biden to really overtake Trump. The main thing is the economy, 81%, inflation, 75%, and the state of democracy, 74%. And that's great for Joe Biden, because there he was at D-Day on the final day on Sunday, attending, going to a cemetery and reminding people again that a vote for Trump is a reminder about what he'd do, how he would impact democracy. He would take it backwards, essentially. And so that's good for Biden. It's unclear how inflation and the economy plays, because by all accounts, the economy is doing better. Inflation has come down, certainly off from its highs. But the perception is, as has been the case the last 3-4 months, that the economy is bad, inflation is bad. You could tell people, you could show people all the numbers you want, But unless people feel relief, and that means, oh, I'm saving money at the gas tank, or oh, I'm saving money at the supermarket, they're not going to feel like, oh, the economy's going my way. So this is what people are looking at, and this is why the convictions of Donald Trump have not resulted in some kind of runaway thing for Joe Biden. Now, here's another thing that the polls show. Polls show that Trump and Biden are both essentially viewed the same way on a positive, in a positive way. Both are about 43, 42% positive, which is terrible, right? But at least they're both seen as terrible because they're both viewed 55, 56% negative. And this is why you're not seeing, once again, much happening in terms of the post verdict polls moving in Biden's favor, because everyone's looking at both candidates side by side, and both candidates are equally disliked in the mid 50s. Now, they asked, why are you supporting Joe Biden? And 54% say it's to oppose Trump. It's not because they like Biden. In fact, the like Biden number has gone down. When they ask, well, why are you supporting Trump? Is it because you like Biden? That number has gone down from 31 to 27%. Is it because Biden is a Democrat? No, that number has gone down from 21 to 19%. The main reason for supporting Biden is people oppose Trump, and that number has gone up 47% to 54%. So you look at all the polls and you say, wow, this is going to be a long summer. It's going to be a long summer. It's going to be a tight race. And I think the moral of the story, if you look at my column in the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund blog, aldef.org/blog, hey, there's a few just a few persuadable voters. And it's almost like the model for the electorate is, the same old model, although maybe slightly more. 40% or 45% are for Biden, 45% are for Trump. That leaves you 90%, right? And the number of undecided independent voters who are persuadable is roughly 10%. That's how you look at the electorate. And those are the voters that you go for. And those voters are moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, and independents. They're Haley voters. They're the persuadables who will not stay with party but are truly up for grabs. Are they Asian Americans? I don't know, but I think usually it's 33-33, who are like baseline Democrat Republicans, and then that persuadable group is larger, like another third. But I think we got the base at 45-45, and the number of persuadables, if 45-45 is 90, the persuadable middle is like 10%. And that's the voter that everyone wants. Who's going to get him, Biden or Trump? And I think if the persuadable voter dislikes Trump for the verdicts, if you can say, oh, I look at the 34 guilty verdicts and I can't vote for Trump, I think that 10% goes to Biden. If you look at immigration and people say, I don't like what Biden's doing in immigration, but I hate the fact that Trump is going to deport all the undocumented, Biden is still to the left of Donald Trump, I think that 10% is going to go to Biden. And then you look at abortion, you look at all the other issues, that persuadable category, that middle 10%, that's what's going to decide the election. And that's why I think you're not seeing, the movement in the polls, the post-verdict polls, because, most of the people are like locked in Democrat, locked in Republican. They're going to vote for their guy. It's the persuadables that you got to look for, and there aren't enough of them to really show a massive difference, post-verdict difference. But in terms of a vote count, now that's where you're going to see them making a difference. If it's just going to be 5 to 7, 5 to 8 point difference, that's where it's going to be. And Donald Trump is preparing to challenge every single vote because he's not giving up. Because what's at stake? His freedom. Because he loses, he goes to jail. As he should. But this is the motivation and the strategy for Trump, and has been for a long time. And, he won't be able to skirt all the other cases, the January 6th case, the documents case, that had nuclear secrets openly, out in the open in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that's more serious than the Alvin Bragg hush money case in New York. But the Alvin Bragg hush money case in New York got 34 convictions and got off the ground. And there was the case fair and square. So it's a significant thing. I just think that going forward, this is what you got to look at. The persuadables. Who are the persuadables? Asian Americans? I think they're firmly on the Democrat side. But there is 30% of Asian Americans who are Trump voters. And if they don't stick with Trump and they go with Joe Biden, that could be significant. That could be a significant number. Anyway, so we're looking at these new polls that have come out, and there's going to be more, and we'll know more. I mean, people caution that after the verdicts, don't pay too much heed to polls because some people don't know all the facts about the trial, about the New York trial. I mean, some people still think that, Joe Biden could step in. It's a federal trial. No, it's not a federal trial. It's a New York state trial. Some people are still making that mistake. So once it sinks in, I think what I said will hold. There's a core group, 10% in the middle, up for grabs. They're going to decide the next election. And if we're lucky, they're going to vote against CFDT 34. All right, some other things I'm looking at. We talked about polling, the WSOC. The Hunter Biden thing bothers me. The jury has it now. There's a thing called jury nullification where the defense is going to try to steer the jury toward this idea that this case should never have been taken up. That this is an example of political weaponization. If Hunter Biden's name was Hunter Guillermo, he would not be on trial. They just, let it go. But he's Hunter Biden. And this is a way to embarrass Joe Biden. This is the way the Republicans do that. But will they go after everyone who has filled out one of those federal gun forms? That's the question. And the answer is no, they're not going to do that. So the appeal is going to go out that the jury should not even consider this case. That's what jury nullification is. I think that's going to be a tack that may persuade the jury that, why are we here? Why are we deciding this case? I'm a little, bothered by it for that reason, but also, there's a lot of sympathy toward Hunter Biden. I mean, he's a sick guy. He's an addicted guy. And instead of throwing these people in jail for 25 years, a little compassion is in order and maybe some treatment. That's what's needed, not jail time for Hunter Biden. And I hope the jury at least considers that fact. A couple other things. I want to mention the Harvard speech because when I was in Florida, it was during the time when a lot of big things were happening, and at Harvard with the protests. You know, they wanted to get the protest out of the way so they can have their graduation. And interim president Alan Garber did just that. And I remember writing at the time, he made the deal with the protesters that, hey, look, you take the encampments down, and I'll try to make sure that you're treated fairly. Essentially, it was implied. Leniency was implied, but later on, there was no leniency because Alan Garber does not have that authority as the president of Harvard University. But the protesters thought that. So we had this big fiasco during graduation week in May, where Harvard had its graduation. The encampments are down, but 13 students were not allowed to graduate. I think they were allowed to walk the stage, but not graduate. That's the kind of showbiz that is really weak. But that was the case. And the faculty came to the rescue, tried to come to the rescue of the students, say, we decide who is conferred a degree or not. And the faculty got bigfooted by the corporation, the hedge fund managers and business leaders who control the $51 billion Harvard endowment. And they took control. They got the last word. And they said, faculty, take a hike. Students, take a hike. That basically is the new academic authoritarianism that exists on campus. It's a new model. And my only question is this going to be the new model everywhere? Private, public schools, everywhere. A cut down on free speech, academic freedom, a cut down on protest, academic authoritarianism. You know, the whole right-wing trend in Europe, well, it's a right-wing trend everywhere. And you can go back to when the House committee brought out the three university presidents to get massacred. It cost the job of Claudine Gay, the first African-American president of Harvard. She's on the corporation. I'd be curious to see how she voted. I think there's like 8 or 9 members of the corporation. So it could have been a split decision. But the corporation voted or met in secret, voted also a secret vote. And they rejected the faculty's recommendation that the 13 protesters who were barred from graduation, the corporation rejected the appeal that they be allowed to graduate. They weren't able to. And so what does this say? This says the corporate board controls Harvard, the world's most influential university, is now set up as a model for other universities to follow. You can be the academic authoritarian. It's not the faculty, it's not the students. Who controls the money? Who controls the corporate board? Or who controls the endowment? The corporate board. And that's the way it was at Harvard. And, you know, look at what happened. We have to go back to that congressional hearing when Claudine Gay was abused and then fired, first African American president. But since that time, look at all the things that have happened. Harvard went back on its decision to ban the SAT and other discriminatory standardized tests. And then, of course, when Harvard went back on that ban, so did all the other schools. Just last week, Stanford said, oh, we're going to allow standardized testing as a requirement September 2025. Harvard has influence. Harvard does this, everyone else does. Harvard, a week ago, said they would ban the diversity statements in hiring because the right wing complained that it violated academic freedom. So Harvard tossed out diversity statements. I mean, everything that diversity advocates fought for, including DEI itself, is now on the chopping block. And you go back to that hearing in January before Congress, where they went after the 3 university presidents, and it just falls into line, one after the other. And the Gaza protests only bring it into focus about what really is at stake. It's really the existential question for all of higher ed. Who's in charge? Who defines what goes? The faculty tried to say, yeah, we wrote the Harvard Student Handbook. We're the faculty. We can suspend the rule that the board used to not grant students a degree. But in the end, the corporate board said, hey, we're in charge. Screw you, faculty. Now, when does that happen at a university setting? Hardly ever, never happens, because the faculty is in control. And usually the faculty, or usually the managers, are PhDs, and they have some say, or they have alliances with the faculty. At Harvard, the alliance is to the almighty dollar. It's made up of the corporation's governing board is made up of hedge fund managers, not academicians. Although former presidents and the current president, the interim president, Alan Garber, is on the board. But what happens when there are loggerheads? There are more hedge fund managers than there are former presidents on the board. So instead of siding with the students, instead of siding with the faculty, the corporate board hedge fund managers won out. Now, a lot of this you might say is on Alan Garber, the interim president's head, because he was the one who went to the protesters and said, look, I'm going to make sure that any disciplinary things that come up, that he didn't say that, or didn't promise leniency, but leniency was kind of implied. So a lot of people say, Garber's a liar, but he didn't lie, but he played politics. And lo and behold, look what happened. The professional and graduate schools, the administrative boards that have the right to discipline, they all agreed with Garber. Okay, we're not going to discipline these kids. But the difference, or the school that made a difference, and this is the difference between the university and Harvard College. Harvard College is the undergraduate portion of Harvard University. Harvard University is made up of law school, business school, all the graduate schools. The college, they were hard ass and said, no, we're going to discipline these folks. and we're going to overrule the faculty, even though the faculty said we can overrule whatever's in the Harvard student handbook, because we wrote it. We can temporarily suspend it. The corporate board said no. And the Harvard 13, they're not walking, or they didn't walk. So I missed, when I was out doing my performances in Florida, I missed that. But that was a big deal. That was a big deal. And it's a big deal, not just for Harvard, but really for all of higher ed, because if you're a little podunk university, private university, and your endowment is worth not 51 billion. 51 billion is Harvard's endowment. Say you got $51 million endowment. Well, who has the last say? The president or whoever you define as the corporate board. Now, this is the thing. Harvard doesn't have a faculty senate. It has another kind of structure, but Harvard is a model, and I'm saying that watch for other schools maybe to adopt this. It's an academic authoritarianism. It's sad because, if this goes in our colleges and universities, I think it's not far-fetched to see how people will accept it in society in general. It's no mistake that the leaders of this anti-DEI, this hardline rule, are people like Bill Ackman, the hedge fund manager who pulled his contributions from Harvard, or threatened to. Also, Representative Elise Stefanik, who was on the short list to be Trump's running mate. We allow this kind of authoritarianism to run roughshod in our institutions of higher learning. There will be tolerance in all corners of society. That's not a good trend. Not a good trend at all. So I was in Florida during the May ceremony, the May protest, the graduation ceremony, and Class Day, which comes before the actual graduation. Class A is just the class. And this is the thing about Harvard. It loves its undergrads. This is like the womb. This is like the classic womb of Harvard, right? And that's why this makes a difference. That it's the college that took a hardline stand. The college admin board, and then the college's corporate board coming down and saying, yeah, the college admin board, that's the way to go. Not the faculty, not the students. That's why it's a big deal, because this could be a model. Anyway, I was in Florida. Usually, Class Day and the graduation week ceremonies take place in this week. It did years ago, decades ago, when I was an undergraduate there. So June 10th is a big day for me. June 10th was a day, I'll never forget it, the day I gave what was called the funny speech on graduation week. And it's, if you've seen my one-man show, it's kind of a critical moment in my one-man show. Emil, Amok, Lost NPR host. What is it? Vegan trans dad, wily Filipino. Emil, Amok, Lost NPR host, wily Filipino vegan trans dad. I performed it in Orlando. It's the show that I have that I'll be performing if I do my one-man show on subsequent dates this year. But I'll never forget, it was hot. And I essentially, it was my Groucho moment, where, Groucho said, I wouldn't be a member of a club that would have me as a member, kind of moment. It was sort of my Groucho moment like that. And it's not that, look, I like to say I went to Harvard, but Harvard doesn't know everything. And Harvard did not really understand affirmative action or how to bring in people who were different from the Harvard norm. I mean, I'm not saying that I wasn't qualified. I'm just saying if Harvard took kids from these private prep schools and they had certain standards of how to do things, very different from what I did in a public school in San Francisco, albeit I went to the academic jewel of San Francisco public schools, Lowell High School. It just was a different kind of culture and society. And it could have done better for me and for other people of color. It's still an issue, I think, judging from other people who have come from the non-traditional avenues to Harvard. But I'm glad I survived it. I'm glad I graduated because, as I point out, I was in the same class as this guy Gates, Bill Gates. He dropped out. I graduated. Yeah, I showed him. So I just think back to that time many, many decades ago. It was the week, June 10th, or the day, June 10th. And significant also because, usually falls around Father's Day. Important also because my show, my speech really revolved around things that happened to my father. And so I hope that if you get an opportunity to see my show, you see my show. And I hope to bring it to a city near you. Northern California, probably San Francisco, maybe Fresno, maybe Sacramento. But I hope to do it at least, instead of going to these festivals, maybe doing a one-off, 1-2 nights, one city, and then moving on. But watch this space, and I'll do it. And as I learned from listening to Jabuki White, he talks about, comic narratives in theater as one way. The solo show is one way. And it's true. They are a different animal. But he called it stand-up informed. I had never heard that phrase before. Stand-up informed theater versus stand-up. Stand-up, which is kind of like a random selection, although there is a kind of a thread. But the difference between stand-up and solo comic narrative monologue shows is this. Stand-up, the point of view of the speaker, the protagonist, the character delivering the speech. The comic monologue narrative is a journey. You're taking a journey with the person delivering the monologue as your hand holder. Come with me on this journey. And that's what makes it different. That's what makes it slightly more powerful over the course of an hour. Because how many times do you watch a stand-up show? I mean, even the best of them, Louis C.K., well, dare I say Louis C.K., Seinfeld, Gary Gulman, Nikki Glazer. I mean, any of the stand-up 1 hours, rarely is there that narrative thread that takes you through. And ideally, you have routines that bring you through something. But the story isn't as developed as a narrative comic monologue, where you are going through Aristotle's Poetics and you are saying, what's next? What's next? This is drama. This is comedy. What's next? Stand up. The only thing guaranteed, or the only thing you know, is you want to laugh every 15 seconds. You want 4 laughs a minute. You want that kind of incessant laugh, 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 laugh. And that's why it sometimes isn't as satisfying from a performance point of view, and even from a viewer or an audience member, because the audience members sometimes, you walk away from a performance. Do you ever really remember a joke or a story? You might, maybe 1 or 2, but overall you remember the feeling. Oh, he made me laugh. She made me laugh. I like that. That's what you remember. A comic narrative or monologue, you say, God, I was really involved in the entire story. And when he murdered his dog, and he did this, and when he did this happened. That's the difference between a one-man show and that's based in comic narrative stand-up and form versus a show that's wholly stand-up. Wholly, I like that word, wholly stand-up. And that's how I see it as the performing artist. All right, so I honor this day, 6/10, because on that day, it was probably one of my best. I consider it one of my best days. I got this laugh, and maybe it's because I got that laugh that I considered not a career in stand-up. I got all the laughs that would last a lifetime. I got it in that one instance. It was enough. And then I felt compelled to do this other thing, which is find not my comic voice, but just my voice in the ethnic media, in the realm of journalism, where I'm talking about being an Asian American, a Filipino American. That's what happened. And then now I'm turning to comedy because I missed the opportunity, because I want to hear the laughs, because the laughs help tell the story. Clearly, the laughs help tell the story. All right, that's our show for today. I was going to try to cut it short, but I'm looking at the clock. I didn't really cut it short. We're almost at an hour. Thank you. Thank you for listening or watching. Listening, watching, wherever you are. Tell your friends. Like I said, the World Series of Comedy, a week from this coming Wednesday, June 19th. If you're in Tacoma, it's at the Tacoma Comedy Club. If you want to see me live, email me, emil@amok.com or emilamok@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how to get heavily discounted tickets to see me live and see my set on Wednesday, June 19th. And then if I'm lucky, I'm going to get to do the other shows. Now, if you're not in Tacoma, you can see me on live stream, and email me, emil@amok.com or emilamok@gmail.com, and I will tell you how to essentially get a live stream for free. Okay. That's it. We are here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for joining us, talking about different things in the news. I guess the jury is still out on the Hunter Biden case, because I don't see them. I mean, I would get some kind of bulletin saying, hey, we got a verdict, but I don't see a verdict forthcoming. So it looks like this may go a while. And we'll see if there's a hung jury. We'll see if there's a jury nullification. We'll see if somehow Hunter Biden gets out of this. But one thing that's important, look at what Joe Biden has said. He said he is not going to pardon his son. Not going to pardon his son. And that's some tough parenting. But it shows the ethical nature of Joe Biden. Another reason why he is, I mean, there's so many reasons why Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump. It's not that hard to be better than Donald Trump. But we are in a situation now where the reason why people are voting is because Joe Biden is a little better person than Donald Trump. That's why, no matter how close this is, I think Joe Biden's going to win at this stage. If that's what it comes down to, who's better, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Everyone hates both of them, or is tired of both of them. But just a smidgen of folks feel and know in their hearts Joe Biden's a better person. He didn't have any convictions. I mean, he has convictions, but he has no guilty verdicts. Donald Trump, convicted felon Donald Trump, 34, CFDT 34. 34 for him. All right, so, we like to close with a little loving kindness, a little meditation. Loving kindness works. Loving kindness helps. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal